Okay, let us continue the discussion on place of supply of services, section 13. If you remember in the last lecture, I have completed section 12 and now I have to start section 13. As far as place of supply of services is concerned, I have covered section 10 and 11, which were related to supply of goods. And I have covered section 12, which is related to supply of services, and I will be covering today section 13, which is also related to supply of services. So what is the difference between section 12 and 13? Section 12 deals with domestic supply of services and section 13 deals with international supply of services. As far as domestic supply of service is concerned, if I say that section 12 deals with domestic supply of service, what do I mean by this? That location of supplier as well as the recipient both are in India. This is what section 12 is all about. When both the supplier's location as well as the recipient's location is in India, you have to apply the provisions as per section 12. When either the location of supplier or the location of recipient is outside India, either, not both. I'm not saying that when both are outside India. I'm saying that either the supplier is outside India or the recipient is outside India, then I have to apply the provisions as per section 13 if I want to determine the place of supply of services. So I hope the difference between 12 and 13 is clear now. Section 12 deals with those supply of services where both supplier as well as recipient is in India. Section 13 deals with those supply of services where either the supplier is outside India or recipient is outside India. This is what section 13 is. Now let me share my notepad and let me give you a brief again about the topics as far as place of supply is concerned and which we have already covered, so that the structure is clear in your mind. So now I will be covering international supplies, section 13. And if you remember what we have covered, 9 and 10, these were related to supply of goods. 11 and 12, so not 9 and 10, 10 and 11 were related to goods. 12 and 13 10 and 12, these are talking about domestic supplies. Whether goods or services depend upon this section. 11 and 13, These are talking about international supply. This is what is the structure of determining place of supply of goods or services. Now 13 is somewhat similar to section 12. Conceptually it may be different, but the structure is same. If you remember section 12, section 12 2 was residuary section, residuary cases of supply, and section 12 3 to subsection 14 were specific supplies. Here also section 13 2 is residuary supply. How to determine the place of supply of international supplies in case the cases are not covered under specific supplies. And specific supply covers 3 to 13 here. This is what the structure is. Now let me start with you my first supply. So I am writing serial number 1, otherwise it is different. Section is different, subsection is different. Section 13 subsections are different, but these are not subsections, these are points for the purpose of simplicity. Now before starting my section 13, let me show you the act now and what act says about section 13. So this is what the act is. This is the language of the act. Now this is what this section, the language of section 13 is. Place of supply of services where location of supplier or location of recipient is outside India, or act is using the word or, not and. So both must not be outside India. Anyone can be outside India, or not can be, anyone has to be outside India. For example, suppose I want to have interior designing services for my house. If I want to have interior designing services for my house, which is in Delhi, and the interior designer is in Germany. So the supplier is in Germany and the recipient, that means I am in Delhi. It becomes a fit case to determine place of supply as per section 13, because either the supplier is outside India or recipient. So in my example, supplier is outside India. Now vice versa is also true. For example, I am an interior designer in Delhi, and a person who is in Canada wants my interior designing services for his house in Canada. It is also a fit case to be determined as per the provisions of section 13, to be checked as per the provisions of section 13, because here the recipient is outside India, supplier in India. So anyone must be outside India, not both. When both are outside India, then Indian government has no role to charge GST in that case. That is why if both are outside India, then we will not determine the rules of place of supply. Now what subsection 1 talks about? If you remember, section 12 subsection 1 was only defining what the section is all about, and same is the case with section 13. Section 13 subsection 1 only tells you what this section is all about, that's it. So the same heading is explained in a different way, otherwise there is no difference. The provisions of this section shall apply to determine the place of supply of services where the location of the supplier of services or the location of the recipient of services is outside India. When either the supplier is outside India or the recipient is outside India, then I have to apply the provisions of section 13, that's it. Now section 13 subsection 2 is a residuary section, and what it says, the place of supply of services except the services specified in subsections 3 to 13. So I'm not reading further. I simply wanted to show you that 13.2 is a residuary section. It says that those services which are not mentioned in subsections 3 to 13, for those services apply section 13 subsection 2. That's it. So I will discuss this later. But now I hope the structure is clear. 12.1 was also saying the things in a similar way. 12.2 was also saying the things in a similar way. Concept may be different, but structure was same. And now let us start with my first specified service, first specific service of international supply, which is written in section 13 subsection 3, and what it says now. This is what I am supposed to do now. So this is my first specific service. So first read the act and then I will simplify the points. The place of supply of the following services shall be the location where the services are actually performed. So the heading doesn't tell you the name of service. It simply says that those services which are written in section 13 subsection 3, in those cases the place of supply is the place of not the supplier's location, the place of not the recipient location, the place where the services are actually performed. Namely, now what are those services? Clause A. Clause A. Services supplied in respect of goods. Think carefully in your mind. Services supplied in respect of goods which are required to be made physically available by the recipient of services to the supplier of services. Goods are involved, but technically I am not supplying the goods. I am supplying the services related to some goods. So services supplied in respect of goods which are required to be made physically available by the recipient of services to the supplier. That means if you cannot provide the goods, supplier will not provide the services. It's not possible to supply the services until unless goods are provided. This is what the intention of clause A is. Services supplied in respect of goods which are required to be made physically available by the recipient to the supplier. Or if not to the supplier, any person who is acting on behalf of the supplier, or to a person acting on behalf of the supplier. That's it. In order to provide the services. So how can the supplier provide the services to you until and unless you supply those goods to the supplier? This is what the intention of clause A is. So let me give you the example. And what is the best example for this? So let me simplify this with the help of the hypothetical example. So first point now. This is the first service which I will explain to you now. Services related to goods. Now in this case what happens is, it is that service where goods must be, it's compulsory, goods must be made available to the supplier. If you cannot make the goods available to the supplier, don't read this clause. And yes, if this is the case, then the place of supply is the place where the services are actually performed. For example, Now Mr. X, who is from Punjab.
Sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, the previous slide.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
For example, this person has imported a heavy machinery from France. So the supplier is in France. And that is why I will apply section 13, because one person must be outside India, another must be in India. So this person has imported a machine of 100 crore rupees. Now machine got some problem and it needs repair. Now this person says that I will send my engineer to New Delhi. I will send my engineer to New Delhi. At New Delhi, my engineer will be available at New Delhi, but you have to bring this machine at New Delhi. My engineer or our engineer cannot come to Punjab because the instruments or the service center is in New Delhi. So bring that machine to New Delhi. And what I did as Mr. X, I brought this machine to New Delhi. And repairing services were done. The machine got repaired. And for example, the charges were 70 lakhs. These were the charges. Now, of course, this is a service on which there will be some GST also. So the question arises, which government gets this GST? Center and state. But which is that state? Now, can you tell me the place of supply in this case? What is the place of supply?
New Delhi.
New Delhi is the place of supply because this is the place where services are actually performed. So New Delhi government gets the half GST revenue, half will go to the center. This is one point. I hope the point is clear. Now again, let me show you the act. But there is an exception, or not one exception, there are two exceptions. This is my first exception provided, and when this another paragraph will be read, it says provided further. So there are two exceptions where place to supply will not be the place where services are performed. Because of these exceptions. Now what is my first exception? Provided that when such services are provided from a remote location, provided that when such services are provided from a remote location by way of electronic means, the place of supply shall be the location where the goods are situated at the time of supply of services. So in that case, suppose you are not supposed to make the goods physically available to the supplier. Through electronic transactions only the services are provided to you. Then what is the rule in that case? So let me assume an example for this exception also. So what is the exception? The exception is so that was my first point, when goods are required to be made physically available. Now my second point, when services are provided, when services related to goods are provided from a remote location, just by way of electronic means. Now so many machineries now don't need any help because softwares are inbuilt and softwares can easily correct the machines. In the car, for example, if you purchase a new car and any problem is coming, you can go to a car center, the service center, authorized center, They will simply do some tuning of your car. Mechanic is not required. That is computerized tuning. So nowadays, this is what which is happening. In that case, what is the, I will give you an example. In that case, what is the place of supply? Is the place where goods are situated. At the time of supply. Now let me assume an example. So let me give you an example. Mr. X. Hyderabad. And he purchased a machinery, a small machinery, or a small, not small, for example, laptop. He purchased a laptop, for example, and from USA he purchased a laptop. So supplier is outside India. So it's a fit case of Section 13. No, laptop got some problem, and service center is in Bangalore, for example. Service center is in Bangalore, but company says that there is no need to bring the laptop to Bangalore. You simply connect the internet, and we will rectify the problem on the laptop through electronic means only. The moment you open the internet, we will start providing the corrections at the laptop, and in this way laptop got repaired by default. So in this case, the services related to laptop are provided through electronic means. Through electronic means from USA, remote location, electronic means. In this case, what is the place of supply? Where the goods are situated at the time of supply of services. Hyderabad becomes the place of supply. I hope the concept is clear. Now there is another exception also. Now what is that exception? Again, let me show you the. What is that exception? Further, that nothing contained in this clause, which clause? Clause A of subsection 3 of section 13. Nothing contained in this clause shall apply. That means whatever provisions are written in clause A, how to determine place of supply under clause A, is not applicable in case of services supplied in respect of goods. Now clause A says services related to goods are covered, but it says even if services are related to goods, but those goods which are temporarily imported into India for repairs or for any other treatment or process and are exported after such repairs or treatment or process without being put to any use in India other than that which is required for such repair or treatment or process, then you don't apply section 13 subsection 3 clause A. Now let me simplify this point again for you. So what it says that this is the second exception. It says that service related to goods, services related to goods which are temporarily imported. So this word is necessary to be remembered by you. Temporarily. That means intention is not permanent. which are temporarily imported. For what purpose you have imported those goods? Not to achieve something, for repairing, imported for repairs, or for some process, or for any treatment. That means it is not a 100% correct good which can achieve some sales. No, it is only for repair, treatment, or process. And the moment this repair, treatment process is covered or done, it is exported. Exported without any use in India. For example, this repair required 17 days. So within 17 days, this was in factory, got repaired and simply exported without being put to any use in India. If you put to use in India, then it becomes, then this provision will become applicable. Without being put to any use in India, and no use is done. However, of course, the use which is required for treatment process, that is allowed, because that can be a part. For example, this machine is required to be checked before being exported whether that repair is correct or not. So that use is out, but not other use. And exported without being put to any use in India, other than the use which is necessary for this repair. Which is necessary for such repair, treatment, or process. In this case, don't apply section 13, subsection 3, clause A. It simply says don't apply any such clause. So place of supply will not be determined as per section 13, subsection 2, 13 subsection 3 clause A. No, it will not be determined. But it doesn't mean that there is no place of supply. GST is still payable. So you have to determine place of supply. If not as per this provision, then by default residuary provision, which is section 13 subsection 2. I'm not saying that there is no GST. Suppose for repair 5 crore rupees has been spent on repair, 5 crore rupee has been spent on any big machine, and on 5 crore, for example, 18% is the GST. So 90 lakh is the GST amount. Government is not saying that don't pay the tax. Government says that place of supply will be determined, but not as per section 13 subsection 3 clause A. Because if you apply 13(3) clause A, you will apply the provision that place where the goods are provided or supplied to the supplier. That's it. But no, government says no. We will determine the place of supply as per section 13 subsection 2 then, not as per 13 subsection 3 clause A. Now what is 13 subsection? That is the concept which we will cover in the last, not right now. I simply wanted to remove a confusion of yours that in such cases, don't think that place of supply will not be determined. It will be determined, but under different provisions. That's it. This is what section 13 subsection 3 clause A is all about. And let me tell you one example also of this same point. For example, X Limited is in Gurugram, Haryana. X Limited is in Gurugram, Haryana. And it supplied what? It exported. It's not that only we import, we also export something. This company exported a heavy machine to Iran. A heavy machinery to Iran, but that machine got some problem in Iran, and machine was brought back via any air conveyance to its Gurugram, Haryana center. Repairing was done, and after repairing, machine was again sent to Iran. Now in this case, what is the place of supply? Had you applied 13 subsection 3 clause A, what answer you would have given? Gurugram, Haryana. Had you applied this section, your answer would have been Gurugram, Haryana, which is wrong. I cannot apply section 13 subsection 3 clause A in such cases where machines or goods are imported for repair, for treatment or for process and without being put to any use other than the use which is necessary for this repair, treatment or process, the goods are exported. In those cases, don't apply the provisions of 13(3)(a), but Act doesn't say that there is no place of supply. Place of supply will be there, whether in India or outside India, that is another case, but it will be there. So place of supply, if nothing is mentioned, I will apply as per section 13(2). Now what it says that I will discuss later on. This is my 13(3)(a) 100% clear. And now let me tell you my second supply of service. Now again, let me show you the act. This is my close way. So still section is same going on. Heading of section 13(3) is still applicable, that place of supply will be the place where services are actually performed. But now the clause is different. So what is this clause? Services supplied to an individual. Now can you sense the difference between clause A and clause B? In clause A, non-living items are there, non-living being. No human being was covered in 13(3)(a). There were goods, and now 13(3)(b) talks about human beings, individual. So services supplied to an individual represented either as the recipient, so either I am the recipient or a person acting on behalf of the recipient, or I am the individual who is acting on behalf of the individual, which require the physical presence of this human being, of the individual or the person acting on his behalf with the supplier for the supply of service. Now what is the difference between clause A and clause B? Technically everything is same. The difference is in clause A, goods were required to be made physically available with the supplier. In this case, this human being is required to be made physically available with the supplier. That is the only difference between clause A and clause B. So let me simplify this with the help of example. A simple example. So though it is not a second heading, but I have framed it as a second heading. But in Act it is section 13, subsection 3, clause B. Thirteen three b. Now in this case, where individual is required to be physically available with the supplier, individual is required. Without this individual, if this person is not available in front of the supplier, services cannot be provided. That's it. Individual is required to be made to be physically present. Presence is necessary. Just because the individual is on laptop, like I'm at laptop, so I cannot be made physically available. So my case cannot be covered here. I am providing teaching services. You are not physically available in front of me. So this clause cannot be applied in this case. So individual is required to be physically present with the supplier. If this is the case, then the place of supply is the place where services are actually performed. In this case, place of supply is the place where services are actually performed. Example. Example. Mr. Shahid Khan, a renowned gym trainer, for example, a renowned gym trainer in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Now, Miss Angelina from USA, she wants gym training from this Mr. Khan who is in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Now, for this, she has to be present here. If she has to be present here, then this is a case where this recipient of gym training services, this Angelina, is required to be made physically with Mr. Shahid Khan. When she is available with this supplier, then only I can say that my section 13 subsection 3 clause B is applicable. And in this case, my place of supply will be Mumbai, Maharashtra. So Maharashtra government will get the revenue on the amount charged by Mr. Shahid Khan to provide gym training services to Miss Angelina. So human being is also required to be available. If human being is not required to be available, then I will not apply section 13, subsection 3 clause B. Where physical presence is required as per the provisions of the act, then only the provision is applicable. Now, similar case is what? Mr. Shahrukh Khan, for example, Mr. Shahrukh Khan, a person in Mumbai, Maharashtra, he goes to Dubai. For hair cutting services, for availing the services of hair cutting. Now, the person who is in Dubai, Shah Rukh Khan has to be physically present with this person. Only then the hair cutting services can be provided, otherwise not. Now, when this is the case, I cannot apply section 13(3)(b). Sorry, I have to apply 13(3)(b), and in this case, the place of supply becomes what? The place where services are actually performed. Dubai becomes the place of supply, and in this case, no GST will be charged because Dubai is outside taxable territory. You can charge GST only when it is in the taxable territory, that means within India. If place of supply is outside India, no question of any GST. This is the point. Please raise your hand if both the clauses are clear, as far as section 13 subsection 3 is concerned. If both the clauses are clear, please raise your hand. Okay. Now let me discuss subsection 6 and 7 because those are related to these sections. Let me again first show you the act section. My first specific service is clear, which is about international supply. When it is related to goods which are to be physically present, which are to be made available to the supplier, and related to individual who must be physically present with the supplier, only then the services can be provided, otherwise it is not possible to provide the services. Now, let me again show you the act. So I'm discussing now directly subsection 6. I have discussed subsection 3. I'm not discussing subsection 4 and 5. Let me discuss directly subsection 6 because it has a relationship with subsection 3. What it says now, read it. Where any service is referred to in subsection 3 or subsection 4 or subsection 5, but I am talking about subsection 3. where any service which is referred to in subsection 3 is supplied at more than one location, including a location in the taxable territory, then its place of supply shall be the location in the taxable territory. So technically 13 subsection 6 is having some use in section 13 subsection 3 also. That is why I am discussing this case. Now let me tell you what this section says with the help of example. So this is my first note. Still section 12, 13 subsection 3 is going on. But in this is my first note. Services supplied at more than one location. This is what my heading is. And when I say location, that means I'm talking about countries, because within bracket I'm writing that including the location in the taxable territory. Now taxable territory means what? India. India is a taxable territory. Now for example, LG, a company of South Korea, for example, this company wants to do some research regarding sale of ACs, air conditioners in summers, and different countries, Asian countries, for example, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. This company wants to have some research about the sale prospects of air conditioners of LG. And this company hired a consultancy firm, XYZ Limited, a consultancy firm. And this consultancy firm is registered in Pune. It's in Pune, Maharashtra. Now, in this case, do you know what is the place of supply? If my services are covered in section 13(3), if my services are covered, so I'm putting this condition, if the services are covered in 13(3), and if those services are those which are supplied at more than one location, like in this example, the services are supplied at more than one location, then in that case, if any location is in India, then my place of supply will be India, Pune, Maharashtra. I'm not concerned about the rules of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh or Pakistan. Maybe their government will also charge the revenue as per their indirect tax structure, but that is none of our concern. If you use the place of India, if India is one location where the services will be supplied, then India becomes the place to supply. This is what the point is. Similarly, now technically I have mixed section 13(6) with section 13 subsection 3. Next point. Now, in this case, for example, if you supply services in different state, in different states oblique UTs. If this is the case, supply of services in different states oblique UTs. If you remember, I have already discussed this in section 12 subsection 14, where I was discussing advertisement services supplied to the government. In brief, I have discussed this advertisement services supplied to the government. And suppose government takes these services for 3 different states, then you have to divide these proportionately. Same concept is applicable here. So now I will merge section 13 subsection 7 now. Now first let me read that provision for you. 13 subsection 7. Let me read 13 subsection 7 for you. Now see it carefully. 13 subsection 7. The service is referred to in subsection 3 or subsection 4 or subsection 5. That means subsection 6 and 7 are also applied in subsection 3, subsection 4 and 5. So I am discussing it for the time being for subsection 3. And by default, when I am discussing these two subsections 6 and 7 in subsection 3, by default I will not discuss these again in subsections 4 and 5 because same concept is applied. When where the services referred to in subsection 3 or subsection 4 or subsection 5 are supplied in more than one state or UT, the place of supply of such services shall be taken as being in each of the respective states or UTs. Each, and the value of such supplies specific to each state or UT shall be in proportion to the value of services separately collected or determined in terms of the contract or agreement entered into this regard, or in the absence of such contract, as on other basis which may be prescribed. So where government will tell the rules. Now, what is this subsection 7 all about? Let me tell you with the help of a very simple example. It's very easy. Now, for example, I gave you the example, if you remember in 13.3a, I gave you the example when Mr. X, for example, from New Delhi imports a machine from France and for example, the machine got some problem and then the supplier of France says that to Mr. X that we don't have any service center of this machine in New Delhi. Your repair work will be done at 2 service stations, one in Noida, UP and one in Gurugram, Haryana. So this is what the supplier says, that please bring that machine or please take that machine to first Noida center and then to Gurugram center, because both the centers are having different expertise. For example, if this is the case and the total repairing expense come out to be rupees 3 crores on that machine, out of which 1 crore is related to Noida bill. 1 crore will be raised for Noida branch and 2 crore work of Gurgaon branch. So in this case, section 13 subsection 7 says that place of supply will be both the states, UP as well as Haryana. In UP, the place of supply or the GST will be for 1 crore and in Haryana the GST will be on 2 crore rupees. That's it. This is what the point is for today's class. In case you have any problem, you can ask me. Otherwise, in the next class, we will start from section 13, subsection 4 then. I hope the points are clear. I have discussed with you practically 3 subsections today. 13, subsection 3, subsection 6 and subsection 7. That's all from my side for today's lecture. Goodbye.